Now watch this drive.
Welcome back to the Highly Original Podcast. I'm Joe Martino, and this is a bonus episode, so that's why Parker's not here today. But I do have a special guest today with me, Leah Slossburg. Say hi.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah, so this was actually originally, we were going to do this last season. We are going to have Leah come on and talk about fashion of like the kind of turn of like the 2000s, early 2010s, kind of like the time that Lee and I were in high school. But because of scheduling conflicts, we had to reschedule. So that's why I still wanted Lee to be in the on the show. So yeah, we're doing a little bonus episode for you guys. So Leah, welcome to the podcast. It's
Thank
been
you. Thanks for having me.
in the planning, but we finally got you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so Leah, in addition to being my neighbor from growing up, you are now a art director working in the fashion industry in Philadelphia, where you live.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I guess like kind of just give a little background for everybody. Like, what is a art director? Like, what
Yeah,
is your
sure. Yeah, well, I'm an art director assistant, which is really fun. And so I do a lot of supporting. I support our art directors. And I work in a photo studio. So there's lots of different art directors for different things. There's graphic design art directors and some brands and industries have like fashion art directors, but I'm a photo studio art director. I pull inspiration. I make sure our sets go smoothly, our photo sets. I gather props. I do a lot of like little day-to-day things. I make sure everyone on our team has what they need creatively. And I just kind of like generally assist everyone, which is really, really fun. I get to see a lot of different perspectives and yeah, it's a great time.
so is this like for the catalogs or like I guess online
I
now? Like
well for us it's the website. So it's like it's just like
But like,
online.
what would have been the catalogs? Like, I mean, I guess that's like kind of an outdated thing. But like, so that essentially, that's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
all
It's
right.
both.
Awesome.
It's both, really.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, so with that, like, I mean, you obviously know a lot about fashion. Like, what really drew you into that though? Like, what made you want to like be like, I want to work in fashion?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I didn't want to work in fashion. And I always said that it was something I didn't want to do. And it, I don't want to say it fell into my lap because I definitely like pursued it greatly. But, I feel like I was sort of called to being like working with a team and it's like so team oriented to be in a photo studio. Um, and so, yeah, I sort of like found my way to fashion and I really like where I am. It's fun. I went to art school, so a lot of people I know were in fashion, and I was around a lot of fashion.
And you went to Pratt, right?
Parsons.
Parsons. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, that's bad. Yeah, honestly, I get those two confused all the time. I'm not like sure
Lots of
which
people
one,
do.
but it's in Manhattan, right? Okay, and it's very
Yes.
prestigious. So, yeah. So I just wanted to like let you give a little background on you there. But
Yeah.
yes, with that, I mean, we can move right into our main topic,
Let's
um,
do it.
which is the kind of the fashion of the 2000s and 2010s, as I said earlier. So, like, Leah, I have like a few of the kind of, I guess, like, and you're obviously gonna know like better than I, but I guess like fashion trends or subcultures, I'm not sure how like we're gonna define them. Um, but like I have a few of those staples. But at first, I want to like let you identify like what would you say were like if you could like summarize that era of American fashion, obviously,
Yeah.
like what I don't know, like how would you describe like that era? Like I don't know, like 2008 to 2013 or something.
Yeah. Well, I think that like there's so much you can dive into, like so much, like, and I'm never gonna be able to cover it all. And I also like I can only know from my own interest, just as like a I don't like if anyone listening is like has a degree, like they may know more. Like my degree isn't specifically in fashion, and fashion history is like stretches well beyond my knowledge. I can dip into
Mhm.
it. But this is like, but from I think like for me and you, it's so interesting because it's so cultural. Like what we grew up with is like this very like Americana, Disney Channel, like prints and patterns, fun, crazy. And then you have like emo, like grunge aesthetic. Like there's like all these different sort of things blending together that we saw like in this like big media boom with like TV being so applicable to us and like Instagram, Tumblr. Like I think that like we were really in the forefront of it. Um, like our generation because we could see like so much. Like you could just turn on the TV and like see like documentaries. You could see like talk shows. You could see Nickelodeon cartoons, like literally like fashion and cartoons. Like they wear the same outfit every day. Like, and it's like it's like so interesting because like those little things like are very impactful. Like if you look at like a cartoon now versus like SpongeBob, there's a million reasons why like what those characters are wearing are different. Or like give for example like Shake It Up. Remember that show?
Kind of. I mean, like that was like sort of. I feel like that came on when like I was not. I had like kind of switched over to like TBS and like
Yeah.
watching like Family Guy as opposed to like
Yeah,
the
it was a little
channel
bit like
shows.
for lack of a better word, it was girly. Like not
Yeah,
that you can call a show girly, but like it was targeted to teenage girls and it
yeah,
was
no,
very like
it was definitely the target demographic was like teenage tween girls. Yeah,
yeah, big time. And it was like so like those girls would come on wearing like a plaid mini skirt on top of polka dotted leggings with a tube sock, a platform neon pink Converse, two ties, a button down shirt, a vest, a puffer coat, and stuff in their hair. Like they had were wearing everything. And like it just like you never saw that before. Like it's just like they're piling everything on, and like then all of a sudden there's this like target towards teen fashion, which is really interesting because like teen girls were never really there wasn't really like much of a marketplace for that up until relatively recently, especially like in fashion and in like design in general. It's like, oh my God, teenage girls want to buy stuff. No way, let's tap into this. I
really.
think that plays a lot into fashion.
I would have thought that that would be like a pretty long established market. Because like I
No?
feel like fashion is like I would assume is like the majority of the fashion industry is kind of disproportionately kind of goes to women more, because there's always
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
joke like every Oscars the guy is wearing the same suit he's been wearing for 10 years where like the
Yeah.
woman's get like
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's
Exactly.
it's interesting. Like I've seen like memes about like Disney Channel fashion, making fun of
Yeah.
how like wild it was.
Yeah.
But something real quick before we get like away from it, something you said that
Yeah.
I found interesting is you were saying like kind of like we were coming up and like around this time like other people the rise of like Instagram and social media, and
Hmm.
I guess and this is too much like maybe outside your knowledge. Uh, like would you say that like social media really helped advance maybe more niche fashion trends? Because before that,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
you
Big time.
to get exposed to it, you either had to meet those kids from that
Hmm.
city where it was
Yes.
happening, or it had to break through the mainstream legacy media. It had to be
Yeah.
on a show that was on NBC or something. Like so. Would you say like that? Like,
Exactly.
this is really like social media kind of really like I don't know, like breathe life into trends that otherwise would have just been like endemic to I don't know, like Cleveland, for instance. Like if there was something going on there.
Yes. No,
Okay.
you literally are you're like hitting the nail on the head. Like that's exactly it. Why this is like and that's exactly why like the early 2000s fashion, in my opinion, is like it's circling back with such a strong force because it was just so clear. Like there was so many facets of things that were blown up to like such great proportions, and like it allowed people to be able to like see all of these other people doing either really specific things or really broad things, like maybe in different ways. Um, and now you even see it in the same way, like with TikTok and like YouTube and like all these things that have sort of like been built up even more. Like now I actually like follow this girl who's a TikTok creator, who I'm blanking on her name right now. But she had this whole theory that trend there's going to be so many micro trends in the fashion world that the new trend is going to be personal style because you literally can't keep up. Like there's mermaid core, there's cottage core, there's like coastal
I've heard of
grandma.
cottagecore.
Yeah,
Heard of that one, and I think I kind of know what that means. I haven't heard of mermaid core. Like,
yeah,
I'm not like too plugged into all the fashion. I feel like I might not all know all the names, but like I might recognize things you showed me.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and yeah, I mean, I was gonna like kind of go with the TikTok thing. I mean, I myself, I'm not on TikTok. I'm actually kind of anti-TikTok. I'm like kind of like, yeah, we should ban it. But that's aside the point.
it's
Um,
another episode.
yeah, that's for another episode. But like something I'm thinking about as you're saying is like on TikTok. I see TikToks through Instagram, so like I do know kind of
Yeah.
what's going on. It is all these different little like micro cultures that have their own like TikTok and their algorithm. So like yeah, like I guess like what would you say are like the rising trends right now before we go back to the past because this is a nostalgia podcast, We can't be too much on the on like what's going on. But I guess like if you could identify, I don't know, like two or three like rising trends, like what do you think is going to be like big this year or the next few years?
Okay, I'll tell you. This is what I think. I think that in a broad sense, there's going to be a lot of like really kitschy things coming up, like very kitschy, very cartoony,
Okay.
very like breaking the fourth wall. For example, have you seen
What do you mean? Well,
I'll
like
tell you. I'll tell you. Have you seen the red boots? The famous red boots?
yes, I have seen the
Yeah.
red boots.
Okay, so that's like
They look
the
like Yoshi's
theory.
feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like Bratz feet. Not even a Bratz doll had more of a foot than that shoe. It's crazy. So like that, I think in that world of getting like so cartoonized, like so like unrealistic, like making those realistic, you're selling a fantasy and like you're selling something so crazy that like of course people are interested. Like of course there's intrigue there.
So, are you for or against that? Because it kind of sounds a little bit like you weren't speaking too positively there. Like, because when I hear people say selling a fantasy, that's never
Yeah.
been like as a good thing. Like, so are you kind of like, yeah, I'd rather this cartoon thing not happen?
I
Or
mean, I'm not like I think it's not my personal style, but I think it's very
okay,
interesting. And we
but
can
like
also
you
go
could
back.
also, but do you think like it would be better if it didn't happen, or if it is it more just like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that. I think it can happen. I think it's like
Okay, so
nice and
you're not like
natural.
this is kind of we're going backwards with fashion here.
Yeah. No, I think we're going so forward
Okay,
because I think a lot of it too comes from like this like sort of rise in AI as well. It's like what's like these like different like AI worlds and like what's it called? What's the what's Mark Zuckerberg's
metaverse.
metaverse? Like the whole idea of like the metaverse, like it's like what's real, what's fake, like why
Yeah,
can't we
I'm
blur
not
those
happy about
lines?
these things. Like that question is not something that's like what's real, what's fake.
Sorry, sorry.
No, I mean I'm just like I don't know. I think we got to be careful with like the metaverse, like all this
Gets
like
freaky.
I'm not against AI, but I'm against like the people who are like we're going to make it think for itself. I'm like why would you want to do that? Like
That's freaky to me. I agree.
yeah,
I
like
agree.
so I think there should be like, we should go with the brakes pumping a little bit on the AI stuff.
Totally.
But it seems like you're kind of saying the fashion is saying it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
And
I think it's already happening. I mean, there's been shows that I've seen too, like that are like the clothes are literally like they look like a paper doll or like they look like a Polly Pocket. They're like these rubber, like very
Right.
structured clothes, and it looks like fake. It's
Are you
so bizarre.
excited? Are kind of on this? Are you excited for the Barbie movie?
Oh, so excited. I'm obsessed. I'm
And
obsessed.
do you think that will like spur fashion?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. I
will there be
absolutely. And I
Barbie
can't wait to
core?
see. Yeah. Oh, there already is Barbie core.
But like, will this make it mainstream?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gonna
Assuming
blow it out of
it's
the
going to be a
water.
successful film. I mean, last season of the podcast, I showed my former co-host Mike the trailer, which was kind of fun because he was like kind of freaked out by it. But I mean, I'm kind of excited for it. I like the cast. I
Yeah.
like the director, Greta Gerwig. Lady Bird.
Yeah,
Also,
Margot Robbie's awesome.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna
I'm obsessed
So
with her.
I
Yeah.
I might go see the Barbie movie. I don't know.
I'll
I
go
still
with you. I love it.
I still have to see like, is it for kids or not?
No, I don't think so. I don't think
Like
it is.
that'll be like my determining factor because like
Yeah.
the kids movie, like yeah, but if
Yeah.
it's like weird breaking the fourth wall,
That's
all that,
I think that's what it was giving.
yeah, like I do like stuff like that. I always enjoy like that kind of like meta fiction kind of surrealist stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm excited for the Barbie movie.
Perfect.
So kind of diving back because we are getting like a little too into like current
Yeah, sorry, we got off
contemporary
topic there.
fashion. Yeah, like kind of going back to this time. So I did find three movements, and again, correct. Like if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Mhm.
That the first one, I'm going to stand by this, and I'll even fight you if you say this wasn't a big the hipster fashion, the whole hipster movement.
Yeah.
I also said athleisure,
Yep.
and then I put emo. Although I do feel like I don't know, like definitely by the time I was in high school, I do say like the emo movement was sort of on its last legs.
Yeah.
And by like 2013, it was kind of like dead.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that was sort of the end.
So, but I don't know. I said like these as like three movements.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
totally.
Would you like agree? Were those like the
Yeah.
biggest three, or what would you say are the biggest three?
I don't know what the big I feel like it's so much depends on like who you are, where you live in the world, and like sort of
Well,
what's
we're doing
applicable.
United States. We're doing United States. That's what we're
Even
sticking there.
even the US, like even what trends like are biggest like in what parts of the US, you know what I mean? Like there's like you can also break these things down
Well,
into like maybe
obviously the only parts that matter, which are the coasts. So
you're
no,
right.
I'm just kidding.
Specifically the Northeast.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but yeah, I mean, if we could be like as general, yeah, I know America's big, diverse, very regional, but like if
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
if we're doing like the most general, basic,
Yeah.
I don't
Well, I think that like you can sort of like you can dive into those. Like those are good umbrella ones. I also think athleisure sort of didn't come up until like later on
know.
in the
Okay.
2010s. But that's a like I feel like once athleisure sort of saw the surface of pop culture and like the stores, the storefronts, it like blew out of the water. And like it's actually interesting now we're seeing like a little bit of a decline in athleisure. And it's going like we're going really heavy in like athletic wear. There's like it's sort of like unblending,
Is that
like
not the
that.
same thing?
Athleisure is like
I'm like dead
more
serious. This is like news to me. Is this like not the same thing?
wow.
I mean, like,
Like
I know that there's between like gym clothes and like athleisure, but isn't like athleisure just fancy gym clothes?
basically, but like
Oh,
athleisure isn't
oh,
made to work out in. Athleisure is made to like go get a smoothie after you go to yoga.
oh. It's like, all right, I didn't know that. Well, I wear tracksuits sometimes. What would you say that is? I mean, it's very like 70s Guido, like or 80s Guido or whatever. Probably not 70s, but like like 90s or whatever. Is that athleisure? Yes.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't like it's athletic wear, it's inspired by athletic wear. But it's not like you're not gonna go if you're gonna go work out or go to the gym, like you're probably not wearing a tracksuit.
Yeah, I definitely don't do that. Um,
You can. What's
but
gonna stop you?
but you said all right. So kind of getting back, like you said, the good umbrella term. So
Mhm.
let's start with the hipster thing and see where
Yeah,
that leads. So like
yeah,
you know, I'm gonna let you describe the hipster stuff because you'll be able to give them better technical terms than I would. But like,
yeah.
yeah, I do remember like that movement starting, and I would say it did personally influence a little bit of my fashion. Like looking
Oh,
back at,
totally.
like I do think that was a pretty, even though like I wasn't a hipster, like kind of looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, like that was kind of a hipster shirt that I was.
Hipstery. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I guess like kind of dive into that for us.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, like through my lens, I feel like you can sort of say like hipster is like very broad, but I would sort of break that down into like I would break that down into like a bohemian, for lack
Mm-hmm.
of a better term, and like more of like a preppy. So like think American Apparel.
Yeah, it was like a preppy bohemian, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
You
like,
know,
yeah, I mean, so I guess like break down like the hipster thing for us. Like what
okay, yeah. So like something that I'm obsessed with, like so obsessed with, is this like do you know who Alexa Chung is?
I do not.
Oh, I'll tell you. She is so cool. She actually have her book right
It'd
here.
be great
But
if you just did, if you just stopped there and just like went to the next thing, like just didn't explain.
I'm like, you should know who she is. Anyways, next question.
So
Next
Alexa
topic.
Chung is,
Like I want to say she was like one of the first really big fashion influencers because she was getting really like very popular. She was a fashion writer, I believe. Um, and she got really popular and really influential like peak 2010s. Like right when like Instagram, Tumblr, like all these like social media platforms are really like sort of hitting the ground running. And she is English. She is really well known for like striped shirts and like a pair of trousers, like a little loafer, no face makeup except for a red lip. Like she's very pretty. So she has this very coined style. And I think that she sort of started this like from this like chic London girl aesthetic.
mm,
It sort of like fell down the ladder to like get watered down into this like American Apparel, like streamlined basics, leggings, a big striped t-shirt, and like a Doc Martin. Like that comes from the Alexa Chung effect. Like she was a celebrity and her style sort of dictated these smaller, like more achievable trends, whereas she's wearing like, Gucci pants and like an Hermes scarf. Like
okay.
you can't afford that, obviously. It's like you're gonna go to Forever 21 and like
Yeah.
get a
Like the
patterned
like
scarf, a striped
the
shirt.
cocky one,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so we kind of like seemed like you're saying like kind of this movement started, or at least the fashion was coming from England.
I think like in this specific case, yeah, it was. And it like this genre is like so English based. Like this like I'm just like for lack of a better term of it, I'm gonna call it like the Alexa Chung preppy style is like so like it came from such like this like very posh girl. Like it could be called posh. Like it's this like posh hipster. Like the skater skirt and like a turtleneck. It's like such a look. So it was such a moment. And she also blew up because she was dating for a very long time Alex Turner, who is the lead singer of Arctic Monkeys.
Oh, okay. So that's
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
see, when I hear Arctic Monkeys, and that's good that you mentioned that because I was gonna like I wanted to talk about that because I was thinking like kind of talk about like the fashions that maybe like you and I were wearing,
yeah.
um, respectively. And when I think Arctic Monkeys, I think of like indie rock. I was actually
Yes.
listening to them the other day as I was driving. It's funny that you mentioned I was
So
just
good.
listening. Um, so I was talking with Parker about this on the last episode that we did, kind of where what subculture I felt that I was in, which I say like emo adjacent and like indie. So I was like friends
That's
with
funny.
like the emos, but I didn't
Yeah.
really dress like them. I listened to the
Yeah,
music.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I appreciated like the music spoke to me and whatnot, but I didn't dress it.
Yeah.
I felt like I might have dressed more indie,
Mhm.
because I also liked indie music too. I mean, that was a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
big genre that I still listen to a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And then there's like indie sleaze even. Like indie sleaze is a whole movement.
and like, what was the indie sleaze?
That's like a
That's like
little that's more
I think about like Kesha, right? Is that
yeah,
okay?
exactly. Exactly. Like dirty, glittery, like she still has the same sort of silhouettes that are very popular, like maybe a little mini skater skirt or like a chunky Doc Marten. Like those
Yeah.
like really popular things, but she like that person, that girl is like she has just a bra on and she's covered in glitter.
Okay. Yeah. Like, and it's just like so. I don't know. Like, how does that like connect with like the hipsters? Are you saying that these were like all these movements are in fact connected?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You have a little piece of all of these things in each trend. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like these
So like
little
what
tiny
I
things.
guess what piece is in all the three trends that we just mentioned?
I mean, you could argue so many. Like you could say so many, like a color, a shape, one specific item. Like for me, something that stands out like really big time is like a Converse or a Doc Marten, like a shoe, like a brand of a shoe. It like surpasses like you or a van, like Vans. Like so many people were wearing Vans when we were in high school, but like there's you could do
I was like
same. Me too. It's like you had like all these different colors. You had like you had like the kind of indie grunge people wearing the checkered ones. Like doesn't that like the black and white checker was kind of emo. And then you have like maybe like a girl who's a little more preppy has a white van. And it's like how you style it. But like those sort of like little things that become so popular get like filtered down into like, what's more of a personal style or what's more like in a demographic. Like, someone who's like us, we grew up in the Northeast coast, right? Yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
like
we're coastal. Yeah.
right, like that's gonna be different than someone who lives in LA, but they're probably still wearing Vans or Converse. It's just like a different color, different shape. Maybe it's a platform, but it's the
Mhm.
same. It's the same like wavelength.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. I mean, kind of like, I had like two more like I think big questions for you. Like one, I'd say like
Yeah.
what were you at this time like fashion wise? Like what would you have described yourself as?
Oh, I don't even know. I think that I really was so torn. Actually, it's funny you asked me that. I was so torn in like these different directions. I definitely had this like indie vibe.
Mhm.
But I also had a little bit of like kind of like bohemian grunge. And I like I felt somewhere in between. And I think I still do like in a lot of my clothes, which is interesting. Like I personally don't like to pick an aesthetic. Like
Okay.
I will some days like dress like someone's son. Like I literally look like I could be in line for a sneaker drop at like Kith. And then like the next day I'll come to work and I look like a little fairy princess and I'm wearing a literal pink tutu. And then sometimes I combine them both.
Well, is that today? Are you describing yourself like now or
Both. Both.
okay? So do you feel like your fashion has not? I don't want to say not evolved. Like obviously it evolved, but like you would say you're still sort of the same person fashion wise as you were. Like
Yeah.
it stayed in line. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously trends evolved and all that, but you would say like it's not like a big departure. Like if someone was like goth and now they dress like
Right.
trash, like there's
Right.
something like
Right.
some like kind of big jump there. It's kind of a
Yeah.
steady progression for you. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I definitely once I got to college began to take more pride in like or like I don't want maybe not say pride, but like I started to take like more account to like like looking, nice and I started to care
Right.
about fashion more.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good, like in a good way. Like, so I feel like I kind of abandoned, not that like the indie thing was bad or anything, but like I'd say like now, like I kind of joke, like I say my fashion aesthetic is Tony Mars. So that's a combination between Tony Soprano and Bruno Mars. Uh that's how
That's
I would,
amazing. I love that.
that's how I would describe my fashion. Um Probably a little bit more. It varies. Like, I like button down shirts that are like patterned.
Hmm.
Uh, anything from like stripes to maybe even like a floral print sometimes. You know, I I like loafers too. I don't know if that's like a faux pas.
Love. No, loafers are like
I like
always
loafers.
in style.
Yeah.
Loafers are like such a classic. You can't go wrong.
I do a little bit of the track suit. That's something that I've been adopting this year heavily, and it's pretty great. Um, but yeah, like I'd say like my fashion has definitely evolved from high school where it was more of just t-shirts all the time and
Hmm.
maybe like a flannel button down that was
Yep.
unbuttoned and like stuff
Indie
like that.
sleeves right there.
Is that I don't know. I would not say I was indie sleeves because I feel like I cannot put. I feel like indie sleeves you are putting a lot of attention into your outfit,
Yeah.
even though it's supposed to look like you're not. You still
Yeah.
are, and I would
Yeah,
say
but you
like
got the button down,
I was
the
definitely
flannel.
not putting that much attention into how I dressed in high school,
Yeah.
like
I
for
feel like
sure.
it's that same like little like the one thing like the big oversized flannels unbuttoned with a graphic t-shirt underneath.
Yeah.
Like that goes across so many genres of of fashion and so many people were wearing that.
No. Yeah.
Different
For sure.
colors, different styles, but like it's sort of all boiled down to like a button down with a top underneath of it.
Mhm. No, definitely. So, Aaliyah, just to kind of wrap up our topic on fashion, I was kind of curious, like, what would you say are the most enduring like trends of this era that we still see today? Like, what made the staple
Hmm.
of, you know, fashion from that time that like originated then?
Well, do you know what? Oh, what origin? That's a really good question. Like, what sort of started like in the like Y2K era that has lasted?
I
Is that
mean,
what
I
you're asking?
feel like we were after the Y2K era. I feel like that was like the 90s, 2000s transition.
Yeah, the Y2K was a broad, that was a broad spectrum term.
Ah, okay.
Um, you know what? Let me think about that. Let me think about it. I think that's something that like I love that is, that it has been repeated. Like I don't know if it's like necessarily like withstood the test of time. I think it's a trend that will circulate forever. Is like this very like hyper feminine bubblegum pink Barbie core aesthetic, like
Okay.
very Paris Hilton, the Juicy Couture, gaudy, sparkly. I love that. I think it's so fun to see that repeat. I think there's been different genres of it, like it sort of fluctuates in different ways, but like the to the that extent of being like little pink mini skirts with a little pink bag and like you have a little dog, like I love that.
Okay. All right. Um, yeah, yeah. But so I guess what you're kind of saying is like there hasn't been enough time yet to really like determine what
Like
has
what stuck?
staying power.
Yeah. Or like I'm trying to think of something that like sort of started in our like sort of teen years that has like stayed pretty trendy. Like
Mhm.
that's sort of like maybe like plateaued in trend. But I can't let me think about it a little bit because I can't think of something that stayed exactly the same, which I think is like the beauty of trends.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I got you. I got you. Yeah, so with that, Leah, thanks so much for being a guest on my podcast. I'm really glad that you were able to
Of course.
hear. Sorry you didn't get to meet Parker. Um, if we have you back on another episode, you'll be able to meet him. And thanks for being really patient with all the scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, of course.
But
I'm so happy to be part of this. This is so fun.
no, yeah, yeah. I'm really glad you were able to make it on. Is there anything that you want to like plug or send
No,
off to the listeners?
no, just thanks for listening, and I hope that this gives all your listeners a little dose of nostalgia. I mean, always on your podcast, but I'm thinking clothing nostalgia. I hope that everyone's digging in a little farther back in their closet and pulling out a pair of skinny jeans.
There we go. Skinny jeans, good or bad? Final question.
They're coming back.
Good or bad?
Bad, scary.
There you have it, guys. All right. Take care. And remember to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. And Instagram, that's at the underscore highly underscore original underscore podcast. All right. Thanks, guys.